Magic Johnson had just stepped out of his black Escalade, hoodie up and sunglasses on. It was a cloudy Thursday morning in downtown LA, and he was hoping to slip into the Starbucks unnoticed. But something about the corner across the street stopped him cold. There, sitting on a torn piece of cardboard just beneath a rusted traffic pole, was a woman. Her clothes were layered and ragged, her hands trembling as she tried to pour milk into a plastic cup for a toddler at her side. Next to the child sat a girl, no older than 10, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. They looked exhausted. But it wasn't just their condition that froze Magic in his tracks, it was her face. She looked up briefly, brushing a curl of matted hair from her cheek, and the breath left his body. No, it couldn't be, but it was. His mind raced back nearly 30 years. Back to the summer of '94, to a UCLA dorm room where he and the Lakers charity team had been volunteering. That same face, only younger, with bright eyes and fire in her voice, had argued passionately with him about inequality, about making a real difference. Her name hit him like a brick, Danielle Graves, once a political science major with dreams of running for city council. Fierce, brilliant, unapologetically bold. They had shared more than a few late-night debates, and if he was honest, one unforgettable kiss. Magic stepped back, the noise of the street fading as the weight of what he was seeing sank in. How could someone like Danielle, her, end up here? He hesitated, torn. Approaching her could embarrass her. Worse, maybe she didn't want to be recognized. Maybe she wouldn't even remember him. He watched as she carefully helped the little boy sip the milk, then tore a granola bar in half to share between the two kids. He took a slow breath, then crossed the street. "Excuse me," he said gently. She didn't look up. "I don't mean to bother you, but... Danielle." Her head turned slowly, suspicion in her eyes. But as she studied his face, past the beard, the sunglasses, recognition flickered. Her lips parted. "Irvin?" she whispered. He gave a small nod, his voice barely steady. "Yeah, it's me." For a moment, neither said anything. A siren wailed somewhere nearby. The boy tugged at Danielle's coat. She pressed a hand to his back. "I didn't think you'd recognize me," she said finally, her voice rough and hoarse. He crouched down beside her, sunglasses now in hand. "What happened, Danielle?" Her eyes filled, but she didn't blink. "Everything," she said simply. "And nothing." A lump formed in his throat. "Are you okay?" he asked, though the answer was written all over her face. She looked at the kids. "They're all that matters now." Magic glanced at them, the boy staring curiously, the girl trying not to look scared. He rose slowly, heart pounding in his chest. "You don't have to stay here." Danielle gave a faint smile, one corner of her mouth lifting. "I've heard that before. But this time," he said quietly, "you're hearing it from someone who means it." Before she could reply, a man in a wrinkled suit stopped beside him, double-taking when he realized who Magic was. "Excuse me, Mr. Johnson, can I get a selfie real quick?" Magic didn't move. "Not now, man." The man backed off, startled. Magic turned back to Danielle, voice firm. "Come with me." She hesitated, her arms instinctively tightening around the children. But then, slowly, she nodded. And as they began to gather their things, a camera across the street clicked silently, unnoticed, capturing a moment that was about to set the internet on fire. If this moment hit you the way it hit him, you're going to want to follow what happens next. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story is just getting started. Danielle sat on the edge of the crisp white couch, her fingers nervously smoothing the blanket Magic had handed her. The kids were asleep in the guest room, nestled in fresh pajamas from Target and under comforters they hadn't had in months. She could still hear the low hum of the city outside the large window, but here, in this penthouse apartment overlooking Sunset Boulevard, it felt worlds away from the cardboard and cold. Magic stood by the kitchen island, pouring chamomile tea into 2 mugs. "I didn't know where else to bring you," he said softly, handing her one. "I figured this was better than a hotel." She accepted it with a nod. "It's warm." That's more than I had this morning. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees. What happened, Danielle? Last time I saw you, you were quoting Malcolm X and planning to change the world. She let out a dry laugh. Yeah. Life had other plans. He waited. She stared into her tea for a long moment before speaking. After college, I did everything I thought I was supposed to. Got a job at a non-profit, tried to push policies through City Hall. But rent kept rising. Grants kept getting cut. The non-profit folded after 5 years. Magic listened quietly. I got married, she added. His name was Travis. We had Kayla, then Miles. Things were okay for a while. We moved out to Inglewood. He worked construction. She paused, eyes distant. Then he got hurt, lost work, medical bills stacked up. I tried to hold us together, but he started drinking, got mean, real mean. Magic's jaw clenched. Did he? He left before it got to that point, she said quickly. But he drained what little we had left. I couldn't pay the rent, ended up in a shelter. Then that closed during COVID. After that, she looked up at him for the first time in minutes. The street became normal. A silence settled between them, heavy and unspoken. Magic felt his chest tighten. You should have called someone, he said. I was ashamed, she replied, voice firm. And who would I call? You. After 30 years? I didn't think I existed in your world anymore. He looked at her, eyes serious. You were never just someone I passed in the hallway, Danielle. You mattered. You still do. A tear slid down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. People say that. But when you're sitting outside a 7-Eleven hoping someone leaves a sandwich behind, those words don't mean much. Magic leaned forward. Then let me show you I mean them. She searched his face, unsure whether to believe the sincerity. It had been so long since anyone looked at her without pity, or worse, indifference. I'm not a project, she said quietly. You're not, he said. You're a person I knew, a person I respected, a person who fought harder than most, and you've still got that fire. I saw it today. She gave a soft, tired smile. It's more like a flicker now. Well, let's keep it from going out. Danielle took a sip of tea. Her hands shook less now. I don't want charity, Irvin, she said after a moment. I just want a chance to get back on my feet for them. He nodded. Then let's start there. She exhaled deeply, her shoulders dropping for the first time all day. It wasn't hope yet, but it was something close. Tomorrow, she said, I'll figure out the next step. Magic smiled. No, we will. And across the hall, behind the cracked door of the guest room, 10-year-old Kayla watched quietly, clutching her brother's stuffed bear. She didn't understand everything, but she knew something had changed. For the first time in months, her mom looked like she might sleep through the night. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the tall windows of Magic's penthouse, painting the hardwood floors in long golden streaks. Danielle stood in the kitchen barefoot, pouring cereal into 2 bowls while Kayla helped Miles onto a stool. It felt surreal, normal almost. A kitchen, running water. Food in the fridge. Magic entered, already dressed in workout gear, a quiet ease in his posture. Morning, he said, grabbing a banana from the counter. You all sleep okay? Danielle glanced at the kids. Kayla nodded cautiously. Yes, thank you. Danielle smiled. Better than we have in a long time. He leaned against the counter. I made a few calls this morning. There's a transitional housing program I know in Baldwin Hills, run by a friend of mine, Tamika. It's not permanent, but it's safe, clean, and they help with job placement. Danielle's face tensed slightly. You didn't have to do that. I know, he said gently, but I wanted to. You said you didn't want charity. This isn't that, it's a bridge. She exhaled. How long could we stay? 3 months to start, maybe longer, depending. Danielle looked down at her cereal, suddenly quiet. I'm not used to people following through. Magic didn't flinch. Then, let's make this the first time. Later that day, the kids stayed at the apartment with Magic's assistant while he and Danielle drove across town. As they passed familiar streets, Western Avenue, Crenshaw, Jefferson, Danielle sat still, one hand clenching the strap of her purse. "I used to organize voter drives right over there," she said, nodding toward a church near Adams. 15 years ago. We thought we could change everything." "You changed more than you know," Magic replied, eyes on the road. "People remember the ones who show up." She didn't answer, but the comment lingered between them. The facility in Baldwin Hills was modest but clean, a stucco building with a shaded courtyard and a mural of smiling kids along one wall. Tamika met them at the front gate, clipboard in hand, her braided hair pulled back in a bun. "You must be Danielle," she said warmly. "Heard a lot about you." Danielle raised an eyebrow at Magic. "Already?" He chuckled. "I said a few things." Inside, Tamika gave a short tour, the common room, the play area, the shared kitchen. Danielle walked through slowly, her eyes taking in every corner like she was memorizing it. "I've got an intake appointment open tomorrow morning," Tamika said. "We'll get your paperwork started. We can help with daycare for Miles if you start working." Danielle nodded. "I want to work, I just haven't had an address to put on a resume." "We'll fix that," Tamika said. As they finished the tour, Danielle stood still in the middle of the hallway. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she turned to Magic. "Why now?" she asked quietly. "After all these years, why help me?" He met her gaze. "Because I could, and because I remember who you were and I believe you're still her." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she held them back. "I'm trying to be. You don't have to do it alone anymore." She gave a small, grateful nod. On the ride back, they sat in comfortable silence, the city passing by like old memories. As they pulled up to the building, Danielle turned to him. "I don't want to stay here long," she said. "I want to earn my own key again." "You will," he said without hesitation. And in that moment, with downtown LA sprawling before them and hope flickering back into her voice, something shifted. Not charity, not pity, just possibility. The smell of fresh paint still lingered in the small unit as Danielle unlocked the door. It was modest, one bedroom, beige walls, old carpet, but it was hers. After 2 months at the transitional center, she had saved enough through her new job at the community legal clinic to pay a deposit on a low-income apartment in Limert Park. It wasn't magic, it was work, and it felt like winning the lottery. Kayla walked in behind her, holding Miles's hand. "Mom, this is our place?" Danielle dropped the keys into a chipped ceramic bowl on the counter. "Yeah, baby, this is home." Kayla grinned, then ran to the window, opening the blinds to let the sunlight flood in. Miles toddled toward a box labeled Books, sitting down next to it like it was a treasure chest. Danielle leaned against the wall, letting the moment settle. She hadn't cried. Not yet. But the tears were coming. She could feel them waiting just behind her eyes like water pressing against a dam. There was a knock at the open door. "Anyone need a fridge magnet?" came a familiar voice. Magic stepped in, holding a paper bag and a giant plastic bag full of snacks. "You can't move in without peanut butter pretzels and a toaster," Danielle laughed, shaking her head. "You're spoiling them." He grinned. "You mean I'm spoiling you? That toaster is top of the line." She raised an eyebrow. "You do know how to make an entrance." He looked around. "It's small, but it's good. Clean. Yours." She nodded. "It's enough." As they unpacked together, the kids danced between boxes and empty cabinets. Magic placed a framed picture on the tiny kitchen shelf, a photo of Danielle, Kayla, and Miles, taken just 2 weeks ago at the community picnic Tamika had organized. It was the first picture Danielle had posed for in years. She noticed it as she was organizing the drawers. "You had this printed?" "Thought you'd want a reminder," he said, "of how far you've come." Danielle stared at it for a moment, brushing her fingers over the frame. Later, when the kids were distracted with a coloring book, Danielle stepped out onto the small balcony. Magic followed her, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. "I haven't stopped moving since that first night," she said. "I wake up early. I make lists. I schedule interviews. I file paperwork. I help people who remind me of me." He handed her a mug. "That's what you always did." She turned to him, serious. "I'm scared, Irvin. I'm still one paycheck away from slipping again. One injury. One mistake. He nodded. That's fair. But you're not alone this time. Danielle studied him. Why do you keep showing up? His expression softened. Because showing up is easy when it's someone you never stop caring about. She looked away, silent. He leaned on the railing. Do you remember that night at UCLA? We got caught sneaking into the gym? She chuckled. You made us run laps to earn our way back in. And you beat me, he said. Only person I ever let win. She smirked. You didn't let me. I earned it. You did, he said. And you're earning this too. She looked out over the street, watching the sun dip low beyond the rooftops. I want to believe this will last, she said quietly. It will, he replied. You're building it right this time. Danielle didn't say anything, but she didn't argue either. She just stood beside him, watching the sky change color, her heart a little steadier than the day before. And for the first time in a long while, the future didn't seem like a threat. It looked like something worth reaching for. Danielle stood just outside the Los Angeles County Courthouse, clutching a thin manila folder against her chest. Her blazer was second-hand but ironed to perfection, her braids freshly done by a neighbor down the hall. Beside her, Kayla held her hand. Miles, in a blue button-up, squirmed into Mika's arms a few feet away. Are you ready? Magic asked, adjusting the collar of his gray suit. She nodded, but her grip on the folder tightened. I think so. Inside that folder were the documents she'd spent the last 6 months piecing together: employment verification, proof of stable housing, her parenting class certificates. Today was the custody review hearing, her final step in making the kids legally hers again, no longer under state supervision. I thought this part would be easier, she said softly. Magic shook his head. It's never easy to fight for something that should have never been taken from you in the first place. She glanced at him. You always know what to say. I just say what's true. When the judge called her name, Danielle stepped forward. Her heart thudded in her chest like a drum. She answered every question calmly, clearly. When asked about her job, she described the clinic. When asked about her home, she mentioned the balcony where Kayla liked to read. When asked about support, she didn't say Magic's name. She simply said, I have people in my corner now. The judge reviewed the file silently for a long time. Then, at last, she looked up and gave a small smile. Ms. Graves, the court recognizes your full custody of Kayla and Miles Graves as reinstated, effective immediately. Congratulations. Danielle didn't cry until she stepped outside. Kayla hugged her tight, face buried in her coat. Miles squealed without really understanding, but the joy in the air was contagious. Tamika wiped her eyes. You did it, girl. Danielle looked up at Magic. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Then don't, he said. Just breathe it in. That night they gathered at Danielle's apartment. Tamika, the staff from the clinic, a couple neighbors, and Magic. The kids played in the corner with toy cars while someone cut cake in the kitchen. A local jazz station played softly in the background. Danielle pulled Magic aside near the hallway. I got offered a full-time position at the clinic, she said. He grinned. Of course you did. You've been running the place since week 2. She laughed. They want me to help expand their outreach, maybe even start a housing initiative. I thought I'd burned all my bridges. Turns out I just needed a new one. He studied her, smiling. You built this, Danielle, from the sidewalk to here. She looked around at the laughter, the life. It's not what I pictured when I was 22, she admitted. No, he said. It's better because it's real. A pause passed. Magic, she said quietly. Why didn't you walk away that first day? You could have. He looked at her, steady. Because there are moments in life where you don't look away, you lean in. And that day on the corner I realized it was my turn to lean in. She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. As the evening wound down, Magic waved goodbye to Kayla and Miles, who were now curled up on the couch under a blanket. Danielle walked him to the door. Don't disappear, she said. Wouldn't dream of it, he replied. And as the door clicked shut, Danielle stood in the quiet of her home, her real home, finally steady, finally safe. If this story moved you, it's because it was made for you. Subscribe to the channel and click the video on your screen now. It was chosen specifically for you, and you're going to love what's next.